invocation he invokes the grace of Bhagavan in the form of very teacher himself. Then he also offers his salutations to the very knowledge, the very teaching. And later on, in the third, fourth and fifth, in these three karikas, if you see, it's very clear. He elaborates on the meaning of the one word avivadaha, which is a word presenting the glory of the Shastram. How this Vedantic teaching, resulting in the vision of Brahma Vidya, is free from debates and free from contradictions. That he unfolds in the three verses, third, fourth and fifth, which we saw last class. And afterwards, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth and 10th. In all these verses, he is presenting the essence of the Vedantic teaching. What is the essence of the Vedantic teaching? In a nutshell, he presents. When we say Vedanta Shastram serves as a means of knowledge of the truth, as a pramana grantaha, and when we say knowledge is the means of the attainment of moksha, the ultimate end, does Vedanta Shastram really help us attain the moksha? If we ask this question, Vedanta Shastram does not help us attain the moksha. In fact, attainment of moksha is only a figurative expression for the attainment of the knowledge of the fact that moksha cannot be, need not be attained, because moksha is the very nature of the Atma, which is already there. That he is going to say in these verses. So let us, we saw last class Ajatasya dharmasya. This is sixth mantra, sixth karika. Ajatasya dharmasya jati michanti vadinaha. Ajato hyamruto dharmo. Hyamruto dharmo martyatam kathameshyati. Kathameshyati na bhavatyamrutam martyam na martyamamrutam tatha प्रकृतेरन्यथा भावः न कथञ्चित् भविष्यति स्वभावेनामृतो यस्य धर्मो गच्छति मर्त्यताम् कृतकेनामृतस्तस्य कथं स्थास्यति निश्चलः I think this is where we stopped last class. See, moksha, freedom or being free from all limitations is the very nature of the Atma. And the essential nature of every individual is nothing but the Atma. Essentially, everyone is free. Potentially, everyone is divine. Essentially, everyone is free. And here, to understand this fact, we also understand another fact, that there is no creation at all. What was there before was Brahman. What is now also is Brahman, the reality. And what will ever be also Brahman. And you are that Brahman, ever free Brahman. This is an abstract fact, which means there is only, what is this Jagat then, if you ask? It's only manifestation of Brahma. And there's no such a thing called creation at all. To say that, you have to say there is no bondage, that which means there is no jivaha. There must be jivaha. First of all, you had established the jiva. Then you can say jiva is a limited individual, jiva is bound. There is no jiva means, and who is bound there? There is no jagat, there is no jivaha, which means there is no creation of the universe, jagat. There is no creation of the jivaha. There is no such thing called origination at all. There is no creation at all. To understand there is no bondage, and freedom is the original nature, very nature, you have to understand that there is only manifestation of Brahma, and that Brahma, Ahamasmi, I am that Brahman. To understand this, you also understand what? Negate the very creation. There is no creation at all. There is no creation of the universe, there is no creation of the jivaha also. So we saw last class how naturally some religious people I'm not saying being religious is wrong or incorrect. Any spiritual aspirant will be definitely religious. But means he will be worshipful and prayerful, and definitely be ethical also, will be committed to live a life of dharma, because that's the only way one can prepare oneself for jnanam. That is not denied here. But the misconceptions are also possible. The Paramatma has become Jivatma, and becoming Jivatma, the Jivatma has to undergo this samsara, the life of transmigration, and every time he is born and he has to go through pains and pleasures in keeping with one's karma in terms of prarabdham. And there's a continuous exhaustion of prarabdha in every birth, so that there's an exhaustion of little of sanchitam in the form of prarabdha. Again, the new accumulation of agami. This is an endless cycle which he has to go through. And there's also a group of people who believe that all the jivas remained one with Paramatma once upon a time, and they got separated at some time, and again they had to go back and become merge with Paramatma, remain one with Paramatma. So here, the most important thing is, whenever we use the term becoming, Paramatma has become Jivatma, and Jivatma has to again become Paramatma. Means becoming implies what? Undergoing a change. Like milk has become the yogurt, means it has undergone a process. It's called a parinama. So this milk is what now? Parinami upadana karanam. Like even the gold to become a chain, it has to undergo some processing. Therefore we call parinama. Now parinama means it has to undergo some changes. Like that, any cause has to undergo change to become an effect. If we say Paramatma has become Jivatma, or Jivas were one with Paramatma, they got separated from Paramatma, which means we attribute what? The causal status to Paramatma, and we also think Paramatma undergoes a change to become the Jivatma. In fact, here Gaudapada Acharya beautifully shows in these words, which we already saw. I'm just taking you, because we are seeing after a long time. Here, is Paramatma the cause? If we say Jivas have come into existence, originated from Paramatma, then Paramatma must be the Karanam. If Paramatma is, if we look upon the Paramatma as the Karanam, then Paramatma is something subject to change. Then you cannot say the Paramatma is what? The eternal, beginningless, endless, changeless reality. We also say what now? Paramatma undergoes a change. Therefore, the very fact that all of us blindly accept what? Paramatma is eternal reality. Eternal. Bhagavan is eternal. When we use the term eternal to mean Bhagavan is eternal, we say, and we also say Paramatma has become Jivatma. Therefore, eternity and becoming cannot go together. So any cause is actually an effect only from its own cause. There is no such a thing called absolute causeless, uncaused cause. Everything which is looked upon or understood to be a cause of something has a cause of its own. From the standpoint of its cause, it becomes an effect also. Therefore, and here there's no such thing called Karanam at all. So Paramatma is not the Karanam. Because Paramatma is not the Karanam, there is no origination of the Jivaha. There is no origination of the Jagat also, which has already been understood in the 3rd chapter, verses, not 20, 21st and 22nd. Those verses we have understood this very clearly. Then what is Jivaha then? There is no Jivaha at all. If at all we say there is a Jivaha, a Jivatma, there is only a name given to Paramatma from a given standpoint. In fact, Jivatma can never become Paramatma because Jivatma is already Paramatma, identical with Paramatma. There is no Jivaha, there is no Paramaha also. There is only Atma. So, what is Atma? The all-pervasive reality, obtaining as the essential nature of everything that is here, and which is of the nature of timelessness, and which is of the nature of fullness and limitlessness, is the Atma. And the same Atma, in fact, is looked upon as Jivatma from the standpoint of an individual, looked upon as Paramatma from the standpoint of the macrocosmic being, the whole total universe, total. There is no Jivaha, there is no Paramaha, there is only Atma. Even if you want to use these terms also, we have to say Jivatma is identical with Paramatma. The two different names for the only reality from two different angles, from two different standpoints. There is no way of becoming. That's what he establishes in these verses which we saw earlier. So old lesson, okay? I hope if you saw last class, you watched on live streaming. And he said one more thing. Therefore, that which is beginningless is not subject to time, not subject to end. Therefore, it is endless also. So this eternal implies what? 3 things: beginninglessness, endlessness, changelessness. Therefore, you can say timelessness, isn't it? So the timeless reality can never be subject to mortality, death. And here, what is subject to change cannot be prevented from undergoing a change. And what is not subject to change cannot be, cannot change, undergo changes. And it is the intrinsic nature, we say intrinsic nature. So what is the Swarupam of the Atma? What is Swarupam of Brahman? What is Swarupam of the reality? The truth of the Jivaha, the truth of the Ishvaraha, the Paramatma. Therefore, if timelessness, eternity is the Swarupam of the Jiva, Paramatma, being infinite is the Swarupam of the Paramatma, it can never undergo a change. Swarupam is something which does not undergo a change, which is always there. Like we are going to see in the following verse. Let us see the 9th Karika. So freedom, being free from bondage, being free from limitations, is the very Swarupam of the Atma, Brahma, You are that ever free Brahma. So it is the intrinsic. So Swarupam means, what is the Swarupam? So he, in the following 9th Karika, he gives 4 examples to understand what the word Swarupam means. Swarupam. So Swarupam is that which never, in no situation, in any condition, which does not change. That which does not change at all is the Swarupam. We are going to see that. He gives 4 examples. Let us read the 9th Karika now. Samsiddhiki swabhaviki Siddhiki swabhaviki Sahaja akrita chaya Sahaja akrita chaya Prakriti seti vigneya Seti vigneya Swabhavam na jahatiya Samsiddhiki swabhaviki Sahaja akrita chaya Prakriti seti vigneya Swabhavam na jahatiya. Okay. See here, he uses the term Prakritihi. Take this verse 9th Karika. See the word Prakritihi. See, usually we have understood this word Prakritihi as the name of the matter. Prakritihi is a synonym of the word Maya or Pradhanam, the original matter. But here the word Prakritihi is used in the sense of nature, Swarupam. Prakritihi here means Swarupam. So what is Prakritihi? What is Swarupam? He says, Swabhavam, ya Swabhavam na jahati. Ya Prakritihi. See, Swabhavam na jahati ya sa Prakritihi iti vigneya. See the sentence? Ya Swabhavam na jahati sa Prakritihi iti vigneya. That has to be understood to be the Swarupam, which does not undergo a change at all. What is that? Has to be understood to be the Swarupam, which does not undergo a change at all. If something undergoes a change, it is not the Swarupam. Please remember, in this Karika, the word Prakritihi is used in the sense of Swarupam. What is Swarupam? Swarupam is that which does not undergo a change at all. That which does not, give up its in nature. So he gives 4 examples to understand what is Swarupam. First he says Samsiddhiki Prakritihi. Samsiddhiki means see, Siddha Purushas. The Siddha Purushas, the people who are blessed with or who have earned certain occult powers, Siddhi powers. The Siddha Purushas have some Siddhi powers. Of course, being endowed with the siddhi powers is not moksha. Being a siddha purusha, having siddhis, having some powers or material, some miraculous powers is not really a moksha. But being able to materialize the miraculous powers also is not easy to accomplish. Isn't it? One must have done a lot of tapas. One must have worked for even earning those siddhi shaktis, powers. The supernatural, miraculous powers of being able to materialize things, or lots of things, this anima, garima, mahima, lagima, we talk about so many, ashtamaha siddhayaha. These powers are possible for a siddha purusha. And there's many ways of accomplishing those powers also. So continuously repeating a mantra for a long time with great shraddha, repetition of one mantra with the focus, attention itself, sometimes for a long time, not with a distracted mind, okay? Highly disciplined person, he can attain siddhis as a mantra siddhi, through chanting of mantras, recitation of mantras, or to the mantra japa, one can have powers. Sometimes some special herbs also can give some powers. Aushadha dwara siddhihi. Sometimes even wearing some special gems, mani nam dwara. When some people believe that when you get some special, very precious gems also, and it is possible for a length of time, one can have some. That's why people go mad, okay? People go, they somewhere, some fact is there. That's why they go in search of finding some beads. We go and we only get fake beads, not the original mix. And then even if original also, not all the monies have the capacity to give you those siddhis. So it's a mani nam, when you dwara also, when you have some precious gems, and very sometimes wearing those gems for a long time, again this living a disciplined life, okay? Merely wearing gems will not give one siddhis. Disciplined life of tapas, and repeatedly doing that also can give some siddhi powers. So aushadha dwara, herbal, and mantra dwara, like by reciting mantras, chanting mantras, doing mantra japa, like there's many ways of accomplishing, attaining siddhi shaktis, miraculous powers. And such a person who is endowed with miraculous powers, attained through some means or the other, is also called siddha purusha. And the siddha purushas, when they are born, because they work very hard, it's a great tapas which blesses one with such miraculous powers. If the person is born as siddha purusha, and he might have earned after being born, or before even being born, he might have worked for it, he might be born as siddha purusha also. Or after being born also one can accomplish siddhis, shaktis, but it is not that overnight accomplishment. He must have worked in many other janmas, or he might have worked in this very janma itself, but it is anyway, it is hard earned shakti. It's not easily attainable. And such people, if they are born with such siddhis, that miraculous powers, and if they achieve the siddhis in this janma also, a result of the past life's efforts and also the present efforts, and those siddhi shaktis will be there in that person until throughout his life the powers will be there. This, which means those powers will not leave the person go away. They are inseparable. The miraculous powers of the person are inseparable from the person. Like that, intrinsic nature is something which is inseparable from the its the given thing. This is one example he gives. Not a great example, but a very close example. The next one he gives, Swabhaviki. So Samsiddhiki, one example. Swabhaviki, next example. What is Swabhaviki? This is the example which I quite often I give here in the class. Like, there are certain phenomena which have their intrinsic, the nature, swabhava. So which means no condition fire will become cold. Fire is always hot, because being hot is its very nature, because heat is something which is ever inseparable from the fire. How you can see how everything is, how the miraculous powers are inseparable from the Siddha Purusha. Similarly, the heat is inseparable from the fire. Brilliance is inseparable from the sun. Why? That's also one of the examples for understanding intrinsic nature, Swarupam. That is Swabhaviki. That's a second example. Then the third example is what? Sahaja Prakritihi. So Samsiddhiki Prakritihi, Swabhaviki Prakritihi, and Sahaja Prakritihi. Sahaja Prakritihi is what? There are certain unique capacities which are inborn in certain some beings, some living beings. There is a swimming school and a swimming class, and then we all have to go pay money and learn to swim. Somebody has to teach us swimming, and even then we can't say that we have learned swimming. But who teaches swimming to the fish? So the capacity to swim is inborn, isn't it, in the being called fish. So also to fly. There are classes for gliding, isn't it? But what about flying? Who is teaching how to fly? No bird is ever taught how to fly. So the capacity to fly, when its wings grow, when the bird becomes a full-fledged bird, the swimming, the capacity to fly is naturally there. And can you separate the capacity to fly from the bird? Can you separate the capacity to swim from the fish? Those capacities are inseparable from certain beings. That's called sahaja, inborn capacity to do certain things, which is also what? Comparable. It's not intrinsic to the bird, intrinsic to the fish, beings. You have to understand the unchangeability, inseparability of what we're talking here. To understand intrinsic. What is Swarupam? Similarly, there's another word, Akrita cha ya. Akrita. Akrita Prakritihi. So, Samsiddhiki Prakritihi, Swabhaviki Prakritihi, Sahaja Prakritihi. Now we have Akrita Prakritihi. This Akrita Prakritihi again, such a natural conditions of certain things. They are not created artificially, natural for a given object. When we pour, suppose we see the flow of the water. How does the water flow? Always water flows downwards. Can you change the nature of the water? We cannot change. Flowing downwards is the very nature of any liquid for that matter, especially water. Now, burning, flowing downwards is also what? Akrita. It is not something artificial. It's very natural for the water to flow downwards. And also burning or scorching on the part of the heat. The heat scorches. Can we prevent the heat from scorching something? Can you prevent the water from flowing downwards? The nature, can we change? No. That's called what now? Akrita prakritihi. So by giving these 4 different examples, what he wants us to understand is Swarupam, the intrinsic nature, prakritihi is that which does not go away, that which is always there, unchangeable, unchanging is the Swarupam. This verse, one verse dedicates especially for what? To make us understand what is the intrinsic nature, what is Swarupam. Here's 4 examples. Therefore, similarly, what is the Swarupam of the, what is the Swarupam? Swarupam is that which does not change. Ya na jahati sa prakritihi. Ya swabhavam na jahati sa prakritihi, isn't it? That which does not give up its nature is called what? We call it a nature. That which does not go away is the nature. So through giving this through 4 examples actually, it only makes us understand. So here what is the freedom? Here being free is the very nature, Swarupam of the Atma. And you are Atma. Being free is Swarupam of the reality implied by the terms Brahman or Atma, and you are that reality. But being free is the Swarupam. So Swarupam means what? Which does not come, which does not go also. That is how the Vastu is. If it comes newly also it will go. That does not come, that does not go, which is always, is the Swarupam. Therefore, here he says, with this he ends. Therefore, moksha does not come, does not go. Being free is what? We take the word of moksha, freedom. So being free from all limitations is the very Swarupam of the Atma. Therefore, you are Atma means moksha, you need not work for moksha. You need not, cannot attain moksha. Can you ever attain moksha? You can never attain moksha. Why? Because it's already your Swarupam. Then what do we have to work for? We need to work for understanding the fact that we need not work for moksha. You need to understand the fact that you are already free. Okay. He concludes in this 10th Karika. Let us read this now. Jara-marana-nirmuktaha Sarve dharma swabhavataha Jara-marana-nirmuktaha Sarve dharma swabhavataha Jara-marana-michantaha Chavante tanmanishaya Chavante tanmanishaya Jara-marana-michantaha Chavante tanmanishaya. Okay. Therefore, if you understood what is Swabha, what is Swarupam of the Atma, Swarupam of one's own self, what is absolutely there is Atma, the reality implied by the terms Atma and Brahma, and whose Swarupam is free, the Swabhavataha. Therefore, here is Swabhavataha Sarve Dharmaha Jara Marana Nirmuktaha. So, all the beings here, all the jivas here are absolutely, naturally, what now? Intrinsically, they are ever free, nirmuktaha, ever free. There was never a time they were bound even for a short while, isn't it? Ever nirmuktaha, from what? Ever free from what? Jara and maranam, old age and death. Why he talks only about old age and death, not about the birth? It implies, birth also is implied, because these two things are something which we never like. Getting old, nobody likes. No, we really getting old means, always the Swamiji mentions, when we are very young, we always increase the age. When we get older, we reduce the age. That itself is a problem of a human mind, that we don't like to get older. Jara means old age. Aging, we don't like. Becoming old, we don't like. Jara. No? Very frightening. And one more thing is death, maranam. Maranam also is something, even though we always say, I'm ready to die, but really speaking, we don't like death. Okay. Jara, marana, nirmuktaha. See, always what we do not like, really speaking, you are ever free from what now? Old age and death. Why? Because you never have first birth itself. Where is the question of being born again? You are never born, therefore you have no death also. The birth is there, death is definite. That we also read in the second chapter Gita, Jatasya mrityuhu dhruvaha, mritasya janma dhruvam, is definite for the one who is born, definite for the one, death is definite for the one who is born, and birth is definite for the one who is, one who dies. But here, you are not born, you are never born, therefore you are not going to die also. There is no birth, there is no death, there are no shad vikaraha, isn't it? There is no growth, there is no change, nothing is there on the part of the Atma. Therefore, he says, Jara Marana Nirmuktaha. Essentially, you are ever free from old age and death. Therefore, one need not attain moksha also. One cannot attain moksha also. And he says, Jara maranam icchantaha chavante tanmanishaya. Actually, this bondage actually is caused by what? caused by your own notion. Delusion, confusion, ignorance, isn't it? The notion that I am bound, I was born, I'm growing old, I'm going to die one day, no, it's all what now? Expressions of one's delusion, confusion, and the wrong notions, which are actually expression of the ajnanam, which has no beginning. Isn't it? Why this ajnanam is? Again, ajnanam has no beginning, but still, it's all because of the ajnanam, ignorance alone. If your being free is not known because what yourself, real self is also not known. This ajnanam is the cause of the delusion, the wrong notions, and it's the wrong notions. So the bondage is notional, is all in your notion. What he says here, jara maranam icchantaha. So icchantaha, literally the word icchantaha means liking. Jara maranam icchantaha means what now? Now always mistaking, not knowing what one's real nature is, not knowing that one does not know one's real nature, and then having wrong identity also with anatma, and then taking the anatma's dharmas to be one's dharmas, one's attributes, and also what one conditions oneself. It's called what now? Conditioning on the part of every ignorant individual. So icchantaha implies here what now? Actually conditioning. No, in fact, the delusions. Conditioning caused by the delusion born of ignorance is called what here? Implied by the term liking. Icchantaha means liking, not that we like to be. Okay, jaram or not, we like to be born, we like to have birth and death or old age. Icchantaha implies what here? No, the conditioning caused by the delusion born of ignorance. Therefore, being conditioned, jara maranam icchantaha, then tan manishaya chyavante. So because of the ignorance, being deluded and conditioning, being conditioned by also one's own notion. Once you have a notion means what conditions you know actually? The notion. The notion is what? Erroneous notion. Caused by what? Delusion. Delusion means what? Lack of clarity, lack of discriminative understanding of what you are, what you are not, what is real, what is not real. Therefore here, tan manishaya chyavante. Here the word manisha again means due to the delusion. Manisha again does not mean here, manisha in different contexts means different. No, strong delusion. Strong thinking that I am bound. No, because of your strong thinking I am bound. The I-sense rooted because of the ignorance, self-ignorance, this is I-sense strongly rooted in one's body, mind and complex. Therefore, what I'm mistaking this, I am the body, mind and complex. Therefore, I was born and I'm going to die. Isn't it? The strong notions about the self being, being the subject to birth and death is called what? Because of these notions alone, chyavante. One is as though born, one is as though subject to all problems and subject to prarabdha, and one getting old, and one is subject to death also. Because universally the entire humanity is given to this fact. What is accepted by the majority becomes a fact. There's nobody who thinks and tells you something, isn't it? That's why 1 in a million, 1 in many millions, one wise person is looked upon as a mad person. Even though what he tells is the fact, isn't it? So, chyavante. Chyavante, what now? They really are, then it becomes a fact for us. What is not a fact, and it becomes a fact for us that they fall into this. The Chavante means they slip into this ocean of life of transmigration, which is not really there for you, not because really there's samsara for you. You slip into the life of transmigration because of your notion that you are bound. You entertain about yourself that you are bound. What makes you slip into the ocean of samsara? Tell me. Do you really fall into the ocean of samsara? If the bondage is real, and what will your very nature real? What is real again? No, satyam, reality is that which is what now? Always there. If bondage is reality, bondage is real, there is no way of freeing yourself from bondage. That's why there is no real bondage. The bondage is as though. And you have slipped into this samsara. Why? How? There's a slipping all is what now? It's all in your notion. So that's why we all the time, this notion continues to be there. Janma after janma after janma after janma. I am bound. This notion is continuously there. And every time there's a birth also what happens? I am born, I am going to die. I have paradha, I have sanchitam, and I am going through paradha. I also have to, agami also is there. These notions, all this actually is only notion. The notion born of wrong notion about yourself, born of the delusion caused by ignorance. And here comes the question, why did ignorance come? And when did this ignorance begin? And we have to understand, ignorance is the only thing which does not come, like how Tamil ignorance for Rodney G never began. So also our ignorance, Urdu language, ignorance of anything does not begin. No ignorance of anything, has a beginning. Does not come on particular day and joins you. So there is no ignorance of anything has a beginning. It is not created also. But one good thing about this ignorance is it is subject to go. Thank God. If at all something which does not have a beginning has an end means only ignorance. Only one thing which does not have a beginning but still which will come to an end is ignorance through resolution. Therefore, we never ask this question, when did this ignorance begin? You have to ask, if you do not know anything, if for example I do not know French, so I am ignorant of the French. Now if I ask this question, when did my ignorance of French begin? If I ask, I'll never, it's there. So what all I do not know, there is beginningless ignorance of so many things. But any ignorance will go. It's subject to, it can go. If I make effort to resolve it. I can die as a French ignorant person also, no problem. Therefore, this ignorance of one's own swarupam being, swarupam being ever free, the freedom being one's own swarupam. The ignorance of one's own swarupam being limitlessness, one's swarupam being freedom. one's own self is something which is there, and because of this ajnanam, there is delusion, lack of discriminative knowledge. Therefore, there is what now? That results in the wrong notion. Notion caused to bondage has to be resolved by what? By resolving by correction of the notion. So knowledge is the only means to correct the error. There is no real bondage at all. Okay. Because the second line of the 10th Karika gives the reason why then there seems to be a continuous bondage. Chavante, they fall into this, the ocean of samsara. How? Then manishaya, because of the strong conditioning in the mind in the form of the erroneous notion. The notion conditions, isn't it? Strong notions you're holding on to means what conditions you? The notion. Isn't it? Okay. Therefore, what is freedom is deconditioning, isn't it? By correcting the error in the notion, wrong notion, is what now? Attainment of the discovery of the freedom which is already there. Always by having this thought, I was born, I'm going to die, I'm getting old, I'm growing old. Why do we think that we are going old? Because strong, isn't it? Identity with that which is growing old. It is not that easy to take the essence from the body. Therefore, he says, Manishaya Chavante. Manisha, he says, Janma Marana Chinta. All the time thinking, I was born, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. This thought, that strong thought in you is called Manisha. That is what that thought is what? Wrong notion, erroneous notion. Because of which alone you seem to be bound. Even now, you're not really bound. Okay. Now, having presented the teaching in a nutshell, which really is it gives us great enthusiasm. It really makes us, my God, thank God, we need not attain moksha. We need to attain only the knowledge of the fact that we are already free. Hereafter, 11th Karika onwards. He is going to negate, refute the contentions and the views of the philosophers of different systems of philosophy. Hereafter, the actual teaching begins. See, why he has to do this? Because all these philosophers of different systems of philosophy, whether believers of the Veda or the non-believers of the Veda, all of them accept the reality, accept the creation as real. And they also, because they accept the creation as the reality, and they also have their own theories of creation. How the universe originated, how the creation is real. when they say creation is real, there is creation of the universe. If you accept the creation of the universe, then you have to accept the creation of the beings, Jiva also. Then you have to accept what now? Then bondage becomes also what then? Real. If bondage is also real, then bondage will be something, there's no way of becoming free from bondage. Very attainment of moksha, the moksha being the ultimate end, also becomes something meaningless. Therefore, he has to now say how there is no creation. When you say there is no creation, you are to say there is no creation, you have to finally say what now? You have to say that there is no cause. There is no cause at all. Establish that there is no karanam. So that he begins from here. And first, I talked to you earlier about 10, the different darshanikaha. Of them, the systems of philosophy. The Astika Darshanani, we have 4 Astika Darshanani, and we have 6 Nastika Darshanani, non-believers, and of them mainly
4 Nastika and
6 Nastika. 6 Nastika. 6 Nastika Darshanani, 6 Nastika Darshanani, 4 Astika Darshanani. No.
4 Nastikas, Jaina, Bauddha,
Or Nastikas.
Charvaka,
Or Nastikas.
Nastikas, yeah. That is 4.
See, by slip of time I had told, but actually I remember very well, I said very clearly, 4 Astika Darshanani, 6 Nastika Darshanani. I did say in the class. Maybe we have to go back and listen. Maybe. Yeah.
Buddhist.
4 Buddhism, Charvaka and
Yeah.
Nastika.
Anyway, let me come back to you. Now we are going to see again, don't worry. It will become very clear here. We are going to see that anyway. So when we...
Does it depend on Vedas, basing on the scriptures as the base of Nastika and Astika?
No. When I say Astika, Astika means those philosophers who accept Veda as a subservient to their views, to establish their views. So all of them, see, all these people, all the philosophers, predominantly they have logic as their means of knowledge. Further, the main means of knowledge for them is the logics, tarka. And the 4 of them, you accept Veda also as subservient to what they established through the logics. So, we can Tarka Pradhana Darshanani. Tarka Pradhana Darshanani means they also accept Veda as subservient. But the Nastika Darshanani, they use only Tarka as the Pramanam. They do not touch Veda at all, which means they do not accept Veda as the means of knowledge. That is why people who use only Tarka as the means of knowledge, Tarka is there, means they are called Nastika Darshanikaha, Nastika Darshanani. And who accept also Veda, they are called Astika Darshanikaha, Astika Darshanani. But even the believers of Veda who accept Veda as subservient, Pramanam, even they also make mistakes. That is why here Gaudapada Acharya negates the views of Astika Darshanani philosophers and the views of the Nastika Darshanani. He has to refute. And here, he instead of taking all the 4 Astika Darshanani, he just takes only the Sankhya philosopher mainly. Why? Because it's always better to, Swamiji, it's called Prathama Malla Nyaya. Prathama Mallaha means a champion person, isn't it? If you want to break the record, you just go and knock off the person, the latest record. By only you had to defeat only that person who was the latest, the record breaker, who has broken the record, latest who has created the record, and you have to only fight with him. Don't need to go and fight with everybody. So similarly here also, Gaudapada Acharya just negates only Sankhya philosopher, who has already negated other philosophers. So mainly we always consider here the Nyaya philosopher and the Sankhya philosopher. They are, the Sankhya philosophy, the system of philosophy, and the Nyaya system of philosophy, they are Tarka Pradhana Darshanam. Sankhya philosophy, Tarka Pradhana Darshanam, means predominantly Tarka based system of philosophy. So he refutes the Sankhya philosopher first. And there are 2, the Vada. Vada means the theory. Each theory of creation. Now we call it a different. Vada means, literally means argument, isn't it? So what is that argument based on which they have their theory of creation? The Sankhya's theory of creation is called Satkarya Vadaha. And the Nyaya philosopher's theory is called Asatkarya Vadaha. So Asatkarya Vadaha, really, Gaudapada Acharya does not even considers worth discussing. Why? Does not consider it's worth discussing the Nyaya philosophy here, because the fallacy there is very evident. Asatkarya Vadaha has 2 big problems, which means it cannot stand the scientific. It contradicts science, modern science, and even grammatically also it does not stand scrutiny. Which means when you say the universe something originated. The universe has originated from nothing. Means the originated is a verb, and that verb should have a subject, isn't it? Nothing, out of nothing something has come into existence means that coming into existence, what is subject of that verb of coming into existence? What is subject of the verb originating? There is no subject. Therefore, how can there be a verb without the subject? Isn't it? When you say, the Nyaya philosopher says, there was nothing before. So what is already existent need not come into existence, cannot come into existence, isn't it? Therefore, what was not there alone should come into existence. That is his argument. Therefore, he says what? Therefore, definitely nothing was there. Out of nothing, it has originated. The universe has originated. Which means, what is it from which it has originated means nothing. Which means there is no subject for the verb origination, isn't it? Originating. The verb has no subject. So grammatically also it is incorrect to say that the verb originated must have this subject, which is not there according to a Nyaya philosopher. Therefore it is grammatically wrong. Then even if you take this latest, the basic principle of the law of conservation of energy and matter also, nothing is freshly created, nothing can be created, nothing can be destroyed. Therefore, scientifically also it is incorrect. Therefore, Nyaya philosopher, what he says is, it's not worth discussing at all. Therefore, here Gaudapada Acharya does not consider discussing the Nyaya philosopher. And he is also powerful as an Astika philosopher. Who is more powerful than Astika? Who is more powerful than a Nyaya philosopher? He is the Sankhya philosopher. Because he is very close to, he comes very similar to Advaita. It is very easy, it is very natural. It can easily be deceived. We can mistake. That is why he takes into account and he carefully discusses his basic views, and he also refutes them carefully. Refutes the Sankhya philosopher's view. That comes here from this verse, Karika, 11th, 12th and 13th. These three Karikas he refutes. Gaudapada Acharya negates the Sankhya philosopher's view or theory of creation. View. Why he refutes his philosophy? We have to remember to negate the very the belief, they hold on to the theory that there is no creation. Okay, you have a small break and come back. I'll continue this.